My friend always borrowed money, so I exposed him at his wedding. My best friend Tom had a habit of borrowing money. Always had some emergency. Rent, car repairs, medical bills. He'd promised to pay back next week, next month, next year. I kept track of every loan in my notes app, watching it grow to over $15,000. Then he got engaged to a rich girl. Suddenly he had designer clothes, a new car, expensive dinners. But my money? Still nothing. Times are tight, he'd say, while posting photos from his yacht trips. At his wedding, he asked me to give a best man speech. I agreed, pulling out my phone. I wrote something special, I said. The room went quiet as I started reading every loan, every date, every desperate late-night call. Even listed the excuses. His dying grandmother, who was alive, his stolen car that he'd sold, his emergency surgery for a spa day. His new wife's face went from confusion to shock. Her father, a bank executive who'd paid for this $100,000 wedding, stood up and asked how much the total was. When I said $15,000, he walked over, pulled out his checkbook, and wrote me a check right there. Consider it a wedding gift, he told his new son-in-law. And your last one. We'll discuss this at home. Tom never asked to borrow money again. Actually, he never spoke to me again. But his wife sent me a thank you card. Turns out I wasn't the only one. She'd found a notebook full of loans totaling over $50,000. Sometimes the best wedding gift is the truth.
I caught my wife cheating in the most unexpected way possible. I still can't believe what happened. Last month, my wife came home super excited, holding up a positive pregnancy test. I smiled and hugged her, but inside, my heart dropped. See, 2 years ago, I had a medical condition that made it impossible for me to have kids. 3 different doctors confirmed it, and I went for yearly checkups to monitor my condition. I didn't say anything that night. Instead, I watched as she called all our family members to share the happy news. Everyone was thrilled, planning baby showers and picking out names. My mother-in-law even cried on the phone, saying she'd finally be a grandmother. I just nodded along, gathering evidence and planning how to handle this. Then came our family dinner last weekend. My wife insisted on hosting it to announce the pregnancy to everyone in person. She spent all day cooking her famous lasagna and decorating the house with blue and pink balloons. As everyone raised their glasses to celebrate, I stood up holding an envelope. Before we continue, I said, I have my own announcement. The room went quiet. I pulled out my medical records dated 2 years ago. According to 3 different doctors, I can't have children. So I have just one question. Who's the father? The glass in my wife's hand crashed to the floor. Her face went pale as her own mother read the medical documents. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her father stood up and left the room. My mom squeezed my hand as I walked out, leaving my wife to explain herself to both our families. I never looked back. What's a company secret you can share now that you don't work there anymore? I worked night security at a luxury high-rise condo building in Miami. The secret? The building's foundation was cracking, and management knew it for years. I discovered it when I noticed the basement security cameras kept tilting slightly. Investigating, I found massive cracks they'd hastily painted over. When I texted photos to my supervisor, he called me at 3 a.m. Delete those now. The repair would bankrupt the association. They've been hiding it since 2017. The next night, the building manager offered me $10,000 cash to forget what I saw. Said they were managing it, and repairs would cause panic. When I refused, he threatened me. You've got a daughter at Miami Central, right? Would be a shame if your employment history made it impossible to pay her college tuition. I went straight to my cousin, who works for the city inspector's office. Within 48 hours, the building was evacuated. The news crews arrived as residents carried whatever they could grab. The manager spotted me watching from across the street and lunged at me, screaming. The punch he threw at me was captured live on Channel 7. 3 months later, the building was condemned. My testimony sent 2 board members and the manager to prison for criminal negligence. At $10,000 hush money he offered, the DA found he'd taken it directly from the elderly residents' emergency fund. I lost my job but saved 340 lives. I found out my school's no phones policy backfired in the most epic way possible. Our new principal was obsessed with banning phones. He installed metal detectors and made everyone drop their phones in locked boxes every morning, saying it would improve our focus. But what he didn't know is that we were planning the greatest phone switcheroo ever. For weeks, we collected broken phones from everyone we knew. Family members, neighbors, even the local repair shop gave us their broken ones. Then one Monday morning, all 400 seniors brought in their real phones and a broken one. When the metal detectors went off, we'd hand over the broken phones and keep our real ones hidden. By lunch, the principal was bragging to the school board about confiscating hundreds of phones. He even sent out an email to all parents about his successful new policy. That's when we made our move. Every single student reported their phone as stolen to the police. Within hours, cop cars surrounded the school. The principal's face turned ghost white when he opened those boxes in front of the officers. Hundreds of smashed screens, missing batteries, and phones that hadn't worked in years. He had to explain to the police why he was hoarding broken phones, while 400 stolen phones were still missing. The school board wasn't happy about the police investigation or the angry parents. Turns out they never approved his extreme phone policy in the first place. He resigned the next day, and we got our normal phone rules back. Sometimes the best way to fight a bad rule is to follow it perfectly and watch everything fall apart.
What is the rudest thing that a guest did to your pet in your home? My cousin crashed at my place during the city's worst blizzard in years. I hadn't seen him since we were kids, but family's family, right? First night was perfect. We stayed up reminiscing, drinking beers. Even my normally skittish cat Pepper warmed up to him, which never happens. He even bought her treats and called her the coolest cat ever. The next morning I had an emergency work shift. Make yourself at home, I told him. Pepper's food is in the cabinet. When I returned, the apartment was silent. Normally Pepper greets me at the door with desperate meows for dinner. Where's Pepper? I asked, already searching under furniture. My cousin barely looked up from his phone. That thing wouldn't stop bothering me while I was on a call. Something in his tone made my blood freeze. What did you do? He shrugged. Nothing serious. Just needed to teach it some manners. I tore through every room. No Pepper. That's when I noticed tiny paw prints in the snow outside my window. Following them led me to my locked garden shed. I had to break the frozen padlock to get in. Inside was Pepper, completely still, covered in frost. I scooped her up, heart pounding, when suddenly she twitched. Thank God, still alive, but barely. The vet later told me if I'd found her even 30 minutes later, she wouldn't have survived.
I exposed how my rich private school treated our lunch lady, and it changed everything. Our cafeteria worker, Ms. Rosa, always smiled, even when students threw food on the floor or made fun of her accent. One day, I saw her crying in the kitchen after hours. She told me they cut her pay but doubled her workload after firing the other cook. I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, I brought my phone to lunch and secretly recorded everything. Kids dumped their trays on purpose, calling her their personal maid. The worst part? The principal walked by and didn't say a word. That weekend, I made fake Instagram accounts pretending to be rich parents. I commented on all the school's posts about how disappointed we were that our $50,000 tuition went to schools that mistreated staff. Other real parents started asking questions. The next day, the principal announced they'd heard concerns. But instead of helping, they threatened to fire Ms. Rosa for causing drama. Big mistake. I stood up in the middle of lunch and played my videos on the cafeteria's projector screen. The whole room went silent. Parents started calling. The local news showed up. Turns out, the school had been pocketing cafeteria funding for years. Now Ms. Rosa runs the whole kitchen staff with better pay. And those mean kids, they have to help clean the cafeteria every day after school. The principal got fired last week. Sometimes the best revenge is just showing people the truth.